Welcome to Dxd Governance Discussion, February 24th, 2021. Just going over the agenda to start kind of a bunch of different things we want to hit on. So I just want to talk about them all at first so we have time for them. So in the Governance 1.0 stuff, Governance Gas Refunds post from Nico is out. On the proposal roundup, just going through the different proposals in the queue right now, and then also wanted to touch on some of like the upcoming proposals I've been talking about and the plan for those, and then specifically talk a little bit about the next Treasury authorization proposal. We've done a pretty good amount of diversification over the last couple of weeks, so we can talk about that and check in there on what we plan to do after. And then Nylon, it'd be good to just kind of explain a little bit of the post that you had on the mainnet base reputation sync post that you had in DAO Talk. And then Governance 1.x. The XDI authorization proposal has not actually passed, but it will pass in like an hour or two. So that'll hopefully move things over to XDI. It'd be good to chat a little bit about the process there and make sure that we're feeling good about that. And then Augusto had mentioned last week about the ERC20 Guild kind of is coming into fruition. So thinking about how we actually have that structure for DXD. And then, the Governance 2.0 signal proposal is submitted. And so hopefully that passes, but that's kind of it there. So let's start first with the governance gas refunds. And so I think the headline number is 7.4 ETH in terms of gas refunds. This was in January. And so it goes from January 1st to January 31st. And I think there were 43 proposals there. So if you average that out, I think it's like 0.17 ETH a proposal. And gas, the GWAE price was probably about like double in February than it was in January. So it should go up a little bit. But yeah, Nico, I don't know if you had anything to talk about for the January gas refunds number 4.
Yeah, I mean, it was obvious that the amounts are bigger because of the gas prices. But besides of that, like the only thing we changed is that we are also you can now basically get the amounts for redemptions as well. So that's something we didn't refund it as of now. But as we've seen that even those governance actions are super expensive, we decided to refund them for 90% as well. That's new this month. And Chris made a proposal that we maybe do one proposal for January and February together, because we are just a few days more left on February. So everybody is fine. We would actually wait another week before creating one proposal for all of the refunds, January and February.
Yeah, and I think February is obviously a short month too here, and so this would presumably after February, this cost should go down a lot, or the proposal, at least the redemption process or the refund process, should not be as robust because people will be switching their like worker proposals to XDI. So hopefully it would be. This would be, combining them would maybe be like the last big one we would do. Of course, we're still going to need to reimburse governance actions on mainnet, and we still have a lot of things to do, but there should be a decrease in proposals and cost after February. So how do people think about that in terms of just rolling these together and probably doing a proposal in probably, I guess, 7 days, probably, or a couple days after the beginning of the month, and then people could just claim the January and February costs together. Cool. And then so I think we had I think there were like 30 there'll probably be a little bit less proposals in February, but I'm just thinking in terms of I'll be interested to see how much the gas cost is. So January we had maybe a couple more proposals, but gas prices were lower, and that was 7 ETH. I would guess this one's probably around 11 or 12 ETH. That's my guess, but maybe we can do it. Might do an open market on that. That would be fun. Sky, you have sound that doesn't work. Do you have something to say? Well, you look like you're still muted. If that's anything, it doesn't look like you're unmuting. Well, we'll still be here. Cool. Well, let's.
What will happen to the recording though if he leaves?
It's a very good point. It looks like we're recording still.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
And the recording, I'm assuming the recording continued. So, okay, cool. Thanks. I was just going to say the refunds, I think like in the beginning, like since it may be smaller going forward anyway, but every 2 months, like you probably don't need to do it every 1 month. Every 2 months in general might just be better.
That's a good point too, because it'll be presumably less proposals. Yeah, and more. Yeah. Cool. Okay, and then switching to the proposal roundup. So just the current ones, as I said, the authorize and fund Dxd base proposal will pass in 3 hours, or is expected to pass in 3 hours. There is the misplaced Dxd refund proposal that is slated to pass in 10 hours. So this was someone who had sent Dxd 16.99 Dxd to the Dxd avatar. No, I guess the buyback reserve, which was I think the Dxd token address. So the 16.99 is locked in there. So this is a proposal that refunds that same address, the 16.99, and that's slated to pass in 10 hours. And then we have a bunch of Treasury proposals. So there's a member balancer, and I think there's 3 member balancers. No, there's 2 multi-sig transactions and 2 member balancers there. I want to talk about Treasury stuff in just a second there, but those are going on. And then, as I said, the Governance 2.0 signal proposal just got boosted last night and is hopefully slated to pass in a week. And then one that I did not actually have on the agenda, but is now pending boosting, is the Entre Casa Dxd branding and website proposal that I think was just submitted last night. I guess that was submitted by Entre Casa Studio with, I think, help from Keenan and company. And so, yeah, those are the main proposals, or the proposals on the mainnet now. Any thoughts or questions on those?
Sorry, did you mention the voting for governance 2 proposal, or are you going to get to that? Because that's on mainnet and Xdai. Should people be voting on both chains or one chain, or
yeah,
are they equivalent?
I mean, I would. So, I mean, the couple things for Xdai. Actually, I need to know if anyone has any XGen. I actually was looking for some XGen, and I couldn't. I went on HoneySwap. I was trying to go on HoneySwap to do it, and I couldn't get it. So I need to bridge over. Didn't want to bridge over some of that, because that proposal is actually not boosted.
I think I might have boosted it, but
okay.
Yeah, but also the XGen on HoneySwap is probably not the right XGen.
Yeah,
so you need DAOStack. You need DAOStack XGen, so you need to use the DAOStack bridge.
Okay. So anyway, that's the one thing. So for me, it's the same proposal. It was actually interesting to create the same proposal on Xdie and mainnet because it's like literally the same thing. It was nice because like I did the whole formatting thing and I was able to just copy it from that and do it in Xdie and not have to worry have the anxiety of $200 transaction fees. But like, I think it's really important that there is signal from mainnet, that governance 2.0 signal from the current batch of rep holders that this goes through, that this is a huge like kind of signal and change for the governance structure. And so I think we need to pass a proposal on mainnet. But I think it's a good opportunity for people to vote for the same proposal, vote for the same type of thing on Xdie. So I think if people are in favor of this proposal, whatever suits their needs. I think there is, we will still do the 90% reimbursement on governance actions. That's still like a somewhat costly symbolic vote. But I think the Xdie, it's a good opportunity to get as much participation as we can on the Xdie base.
Yeah, it would be amazing if everyone voted on it on Xdie, at least, maybe not mainnet, and we got like 25 people voting for governance 2.0 vote. If anyone here has any questions about how to vote or use Xdie, DM me and I'll help you. And we can go through it one-on-one.
Yeah, I was waiting to, I was going to post specifically the X, I think when it was boosted, but if it's like already, I think boosted, but yeah, I mean, I think this is like anyone who supports this, I think we should do this as a good way of showing like voter participation and showing that we're engaged. And I think this is, yeah, I mean, obviously a little biased, but I think it's a good foundation for us to like build in the future, the governance 2.0 stuff, but it's also a very like short-term way of building out Xdie functionality and capability. So I just seen Nico. Let's the worker proposals. Is that like about X? Is that about doing them on Xdie? Is how to do them on Xdie or?
Yeah, exactly. That's like the question, like in the best case, because like we experienced a lot of questions from the new workers that they actually went through their first proposals and realized how expensive it is and stuff like that. So in the best case, all of the 3 new workers and also Martin would be interested in actually submitting the proposals on Xdie already. And we had a bunch of questions of like how to actually submit it, like how to actually get the funds out of their funds, how to get the rep back to mainnet, and etc. I think we can collect some questions there, but yeah, that was like a question: are we ready on Xdie, or is there something that needs to be prepared first before submitting the first worker proposals?
Yeah, let's just talk about this now. Like knock these out. So one, there are no funds right now, but we should have funds hopefully by the end of the day. It would be good to coordinate that we'll have to do a multi-sig transaction, a couple multi-sig transactions, but that will put 100 ETH in Xdie. So like, $160,000 in the Xdie base, which should be able to do the month of worker proposals that are coming up. So I think that we should be able to have like all of the worker proposals on Xdie soon from a just pure payment of salary component. The proposal process is actually this from a like individual worker perspective is the same in the sense that it's like you go to Alchemy, it's a different DAO, but you're just submitting the same type of thing. We'll have the same relationship with DAO Talk, keep everything that the same. Some people will need to vote on it. Hopefully more people will be voting on it. It needs to be boosted. All of those things will kind of be the same, but I think those shouldn't be an issue. The concerns, I think, are like 3 areas. One is bridging, like, you've got money on Xdie, but how do you get that into pay rent, pay kind of whatever else you're doing. So maybe we could talk about how we can make that process easier. And then the two other things are, one, how do we have mainnet rep payments or rewards, and then the third is the DXD. Right? How do we do those? And so I think the rep and the DXD are not completely answered yet. We have, I think, a solution that Nylon can touch on about batching multiple rep awards together. And then the DXD, I think it's going to be hard to do that on XDI right now. And we're kind of solving some of that in the payroll system that BlockRocket is working on. And I think it's probably best to see what that ends up looking like before coming into hard and fast rules on the DXD compensation, because theoretically they could just have that same system that they're building on mainnet and, obviously deploy it to XDI. That comes with a bunch of other complications there. But I'm hoping that we're moving towards where every worker proposal starting from tomorrow, and even like the Entree Casa proposal, that we can start doing these through XDI, just because the cost are too much. There really shouldn't be anything that we can't do there. Nylon, do you want to touch on the rep component? I think for right now, just on the rep, like we're still operating under the guidelines that each worker, each full-time contributor is due 0.1667% rep every month. And so that's still the case, but we won't be able to do the actual reward distribution in the proposal. So we'll have to figure out actually how we batch those together. So Nylon, you had posted about it. Do you want to?
Yeah, so let me link to the talk thread. First of all, a quick question. What do you think about the name Metronome? Is it going to be like Oren and myself participating in the DXDAO through that? He chose the name. Anyway, so this is like there's a question. Jeff Garzik, what?
I think he had a company named Metronome, but anyway.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's true. It's like Metronome that I always take it because of that. Yeah. Anyway, the question of basically the XDI bases, the XDI and other bases that we're going to have, and how they're treated or reflected on mainnet in terms of reputation. That's kind of like an open question. Kind of like in the post, there's an outline, like we might decide that once a base forks off, it continues off on its own reputation trajectory, basically, and we don't really mind it. And the other solution is to kind of equalize the reputation from the different bases and periodically update them onto the mainnet DAO. And this is a solution that I came up with Oren, basically. It's something that I had basically I spec'd and developed, and we developed it like for ETH Denver. Still needs some testing. It did go through an audit where I can send it. Yeah, maybe I'll attach it. I'll edit and attach it to the post. But basically, you register a reputation admin, which takes a couple of inputs. What is the owner address? When is the start time? What is the end time? And what's the maximum amount of reputation it can mint or burn? So you initiate that plugin basically as with the DAO as the owner, and then the DAO can essentially give that plugin an array of addresses and the amount of reputation to mint. And in this way, yeah, you can mint. I tested it up to like 100 addresses. And minting up to 100, like it fills up basically an Ethereum block, right? So it's going to cost a lot, but if we do this every 3 months, every 6 months, then we only need to, like, it's basically one transaction that mints a lot of reputation to a lot of people. It's fairly safe because when you initialize the plugin, you give it the amount of reputation that it can mint. So if theoretically someone takes over, they can only get that amount of rep, and then we can slash it afterwards. And yeah, like this is like we can use this. We need to like finalize the process and how it looks like. But I think this could be a great solution to if we want to continue like essentially normalizing the reputation between mainnet and the bases. So I don't know, any questions?
Yeah, sounds great.
Nylon, could this be used? This could be also used on XDAI, right? Because the thing that's not normalized right now is there's a lot of people, like most of the key like main workers over the last like 3-4 months since we mapped mainnet rep, they don't have their rep or any rep on XDAI. So we could use that on XDAI to like match it to mainnet as a test.
Yeah.
And then once we use XDAI going forward more, then you would then use it the opposite direction on mainnet.
Yeah. It could also be used on XDAI, obviously. Yeah, so I think like the next steps, it's actually to do it on Rinkeby and test it out, see that it works. Also test some edge cases, and then test it on XDAI. See if we can do it on XDAI, and then probably the last step is to actually touch on the mainnet base. Yeah, and this could also be used theoretically for the rep boosts as well. Like we can include everything in like one transaction that mints a shitload of rep.
Yeah, and I definitely think we need this tool. But now, in just like in you talking about it, we definitely need to come up with like a very thought out and robust process for like when we are using it and like minting a bunch of reputation and like distributing it, because that will become like an event or something. And like right now we know that the thing we want to make sure we're doing, especially as it relates to governance 2.0, is we want to make sure that contributors are getting their mainnet rep awards in a like predictable, consistent faction. So we imagine that we'd want to do like 1 in 3 months and then maybe one like 3 months after that. But thinking about like what that process is for what is included in those rep distributions, because they will be aggregated together. We'll have to think about what that process is.
Yeah, I mean, we could just like pull in a couple of sources. Let's say one source is, let's say if we're doing it on XDAI, one source is the difference between mainnet and XDAI right now, like people who have reputation on mainnet but don't have it on XDAI. So that's a list of like addresses and the reputation. Maybe we want to have, I don't know, something else or like additional kind of events, and we categorize these hopefully like a DAO doc thread, right? And like have everything transparent, and then the deployment or initialization of that scheme will be also transparent with that list, and then yeah, like the actual proposal, the multi-call proposal to mint the reputation will be also sort of monitored.
And Nico, just returning to your question about like Mesa worker proposals, does this, I know that everything is solved and the rep thing a little bit of a question, and same with the DXD, but you think there's like enough structure that emerging for that? Hopefully next week we could do a proposal even on this call, but yeah, is that enough info?
Definitely, yeah. So so it sounds to me, even if we are a little bit early and still have to figure out some stuff, at least the payment is available, and I guess like that's the most important thing, and like bridge it back to mainnet. As soon as we have that, I think we can go ahead and try the first worker proposals on the Mesa squad.
So the method would be request request your payment in XDAI, include the worker rep 0.16% in that proposal as XDAI reputation, and also put a note in your proposal about the DXD vesting that will eventually happen on mainnet, so it's recorded, and then you have all three things in your one proposal on XDAI. And then it's set.
Yeah, because we're developing the tools to be able to, like, you know, if to go back and like distribute those, but it's important to have them noted and recorded at the time. Cool. And just Sky or whoever we're thinking about, it probably will be some in a couple hours. It would be good to start the process for the multi-sig today or tomorrow, just to get the XDAI in there, because I know it'll probably be a little bit more complicated than what we've been doing with the Treasury diversification.
Yeah. What you said it passes in like an hour, right?
I did 63 hours. I just looked at it. It's just 3 hours. So
okay.
Cool. Okay. And then I wanted to just kind of touch on a couple like upcoming proposals that we are working on that are in the works that we don't have live proposals yet, and just kind of provide a little bit of a update or plan of action on those. So the three big ones thinking about are: one, halt the bonding curve. Two is swapper liquidity deposit, and I maybe include the relayer into this. And then three is the Dxd buyback. And so I could talk a little bit about the Dxd buyback. And John, maybe you could give us an update on the halt the bonding curve and the swapper liquidity deposit.
Yep. So all of these things, we had some trouble with the liquidity deposit and the Gnosis protocol relayer, and the lesson there was that we didn't do a good job integration testing there. And so that's what we're working on this week. I was actually just doing that before the call, and Nico and Augusto have been working on that as well. So my hope is that by the end of this week, we'll have completed like a full round of integration testing for testing out the bonding curve, the higher minimum investment parameter, which is the way we will pause the bonding curve, as well as the swapper liquidity relayers in the Gnosis protocol relayer with a fix. And so hopefully by next week, we'll be cleared to do all these things. And I don't know if Nico or Augusto, you had anything to add there, but that's what I'm hoping.
Cool.
Yeah, on the on the bonding curve, we will need also to update the DXtrust application, because once we halt the curve, the minimum investment is going to set to a value where it's not going to allow you buy anymore. And for this, we will have to update the DXtrust /openrace/ where we are the curve application. So we will have to create two proposals. One will be the one that we are testing right now, to update the configuration of the curve to set the minimum investment at the max integer. And the other one will be to update the DXtrust application to the latest one with new designs that I applied that said sent.
And so those will like not, I guess I'm thinking if we like halt the bonding curve, that doesn't mean there's just gonna be like a big red X that's like don't send any money, or like what is?
Well, no, actually it's going to show the buy option as disabled. You will be able to sell to the curve, but you won't be able to buy. We are going to see this change in 2 days when the proposal on Rinkebuy is executed. I'm going to vote it right now, and we have a DXtrust application, the one that we are going to deploy on mainnet on Rinkebuy. So once this proposal on Rinkebuy that uses the same smart contract that we have on mainnet gets approved, we are going to see that it is disabled on Rinkebuy, and we will test the process. And if all works well, we are going to repeat the process next week on mainnet.
Cool. I want to hang out the Rinkeby DXDAO. That seems like the coolest DXDAO base now. Lots of fun activity there.
Yeah, I'm working a lot there. I'm going to send you the link of the proposal that they created. I'm going to vote it right now with the rep because we have the same rep there that you have on mainnet. Actually, it was, I think, a month ago that I used the mapping rep that we are using in Nexi. So yeah, there. Go. I'm working a lot there to have it ready for next month.
Oh, Augusto, I have a question. Like this Rinkeby DAO, like just the address, you can use that, and it has like 5-minute resolution times. So like everything will be much faster.
Yeah, but the owner of the DX Trust of the DXD token that I deploy is this DAO. While I still have to update the Rinkeby configuration because I use like hours and I should have used minutes.
Yeah, okay.
So many DXDAO bases. Cool. And then so timelines for the halt the bonding curve and the swapper liquidity deposits. You said that the testing phase is kind of going on there. And then the Dxd Buyback is another one that we've been working on. It does rely on some of the technical implementations that we just mentioned on, because presumably we would be using the relayer to actually execute the buyback. But I think that we can do things in the meantime to get that, to get us ready for that. So Pulp has been working on this a bit, and I think what we've been discussing is coming up with, I think it was a token holder presentation or on the transparency statement. But basically, we're trying to come up with some material to basically explain what we're doing with the buyback and why we're doing it. Just to kind of be upfront with this, because if we're going to be buying DXD, that's going to be like a signal to the market, and so to show kind of our work that we've done for that, I think is very important. So I think the current plan is for next Wednesday's governance discussion for us to have a draft of this token holder presentation. That will be a draft that will be hopefully posted on DAO Talk after that, and that will kind of kickstart the process for that. And so that'll go through like a bunch of informational things about DxDAO. So it'll use things like the budget and product breakdown, some of our past costs. We'll need to talk about some of the market risk and like the overall organizational structure of DxDAO, just to kind of like put these all in one place. And then in terms of what we need or what we're still working on there, there's kind of two things for the Dxd Buyback that are still input. So one is like, what is it being used for, right? What's the reason for this? Where you're buying this, what is the kind of use case of it? And then two is how much and like the amount per day to execute that. So starting first with the like, what is it used for? So I think broadly speaking, it's kind of DXD is undervalued and we want to provide liquidity on Swapper, and that's the justification that we're looking for there. And so that would be, I think there is some question if we would burn any of the DXD that we would buy back, right? We just buy back and then have 100% of it go to the Treasury, or maybe we would buy some of it back and burn a small portion of it to decrease the circulating supply. So that's kind of like one thing. And then the second thing is on the amount per day. And so kind of best practices in how people are, doing buybacks, not that there's that much of a track record, but at least maybe in the traditional world, you want to base how much you're buying back on a daily as a percentage of daily volume, because obviously this would move the market a lot. And so we only want to be doing it based upon how much volume per day DXD is seen on an average. So we're probably netting out around $50,000 in terms of the daily amount that we could potentially buy back and execute through that. That's also, I think, like the minimum amount that it would make sense from a gas perspective, right? If it takes, I guess maybe it would take maybe $400 or $500 to execute one of these trades through that. And then the question is like, how much do we want to do? Because I think it would make sense if we're doing a buyback to set a like, we are going to like do these purchases every day at like, and these are our constraints, rather than like we did it once and then we'll decide later like whether we want to continue. That this is all part of like a specific buyback campaign that we're instituting over like a month or something. So yeah, just kind of open for questions or comments on really like the two things we're looking for is one, what are we doing with it? We're gonna say that we want to put it in Swapper. And do we want to burn any of it or just have it all go into the Treasury? And then two is we're landing kind of at the amount per day, maybe is around $50,000. And then how do we want to like structure the total amount we're indicating that we want to buy so that we can craft like a whole like buyback campaign that's happening over a period of time, irrespective of market movements. Maybe the how much is like, how do we, and Pulp, please.
Yeah, that was a great summary, Chris. Okay, so yeah, I think the 50K, it's somewhat of a technical question. We need to know how the relayer is going to work, because just by plugging in 50K for a buy order on a decentralized DEX, you're going to have about, let's say, like a 10% increase in the value of the token, which keeps us within that minimal area where we're not, completely encompassing the market for that day. So one question I had actually is with the technicals, what exchanges would we be getting the price from, and and could we even purchase just off of one exchange? Because that would lower the costs as far as the buy order is concerned versus multiple exchanges. So that's one thing to think about. Like, there's just some technical aspects that we could look at here. Another thing is we could do it over a month. We could do it over 6 months. And with 50K a day, how much do we want to buy back? I felt like there's just so many elements to like what to go through with execution of this that I think it's kind of overwhelming for people to think about. But obviously we want, the reason we're doing this is because we think DXD is undervalued. We think, our treasury right now is an ETH, and we have the ability based off of our financial situation and our budget to do the buyback. So what's an amount of, this also could be possibly used as like a marketing angle as well for our own exchange. There's just like many different things we could think about for this. So we could potentially do the buyback over the course of, 6 months even. And one thing I was wondering, because I know, hey, Christopher brought this up, that there could be issues with front running. And I think that's going to be an issue no matter what. And with the relayer, is there any way if we put in a certain amount that we're going to do the buyback program for, say that's $500,000 worth of DXD over the course of 6 months, just say, would there be any way to set up a relayer or to set up some sort of like smart contract that would randomly choose which days the 50K would be purchased, like the 10 days of 50K, so it's less obvious when it's going to happen, just that people know it's going to happen over a 6 month period. We're buying back 500K. It's going to be 50K a day. Is that something that's even technically possible?
I don't know if Nico already spoke to this at all when I had to take a call, but I think in theory, doing some kind of a random thing is technically possible, but it would be very difficult to implement. With the updates to the Gnosis protocol relayer, we would have the ability to do it with one proposal, have several orders kind of staggered with different start times, but it would be transparent what those dates are and when those orders would go in.
So obviously, if someone wants to take the time, they'll figure it out, as we know. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So, okay. So, well, that was just one thought I had. And then, so the other thing is the amount that we're comfortable with purchasing back. So so right now our treasury is at approximately $33 million worth of ETH, not including, obviously we've already done some transition over to stable coins, and I'm just not including that for this scope of conversation. So say for some reason ETH drops 50% and we haven't, moved more over into stable coins, which we intend on doing. So worst case scenario, say we go down to having, 16.5 million in ETH somehow in the next year. And then we have, I think based off of Chris's budget calculations, it looks like 2 years, if we have a 2-year runway, it's about $5.6 million. So, say for some reason in a year from now, the treasury, goes down in half of ETH, and we have a runway then still with 5.6 million for 2 years. That would leave us still with like something just under $9 million in ETH. So what would be a reasonable amount of money to include as part of a buyback? We don't need to do a huge amount. We can, there's just what would be, what would sound good to DXD holders? 500,000. I know we've discussed 250,000 for Swapper. Could we do people think more? How are people feeling about keeping our ETH reserves? How robust of a buyback program do we want to do? Considering the worst case scenario, if all of a sudden ETH drops by half the price it is now. That's the question.
Yeah, I think the last time we talked about the same topic was we were talking about the 250K for DXD, and there was some talk that like it would be awesome to like have multiple DXD pools and own a bunch of pairs all across DXD. So in order to do that, you probably are going to want, and if you're assuming you're only going to use DXD you buy back with, I mean, you could use DXD we already have if the price is high enough. So you don't maybe need to buy it all back, but maybe more than 250K would give more flexibility around having more awesome swapper pools, I think.
Okay. All right.
But I guess to my point though, when you start this buyback and people are aware of it, and it could likely change the price of DXD very dramatically, right? Once that happens, you have to be able to dynamically adjust what we're doing with our pools and what we're doing with DXD we already have and all that kind of stuff. So it's hard to know exactly how everything will react to this. And then you'll have to be dynamically changing your plans, I think.
So one thing I'd like to propose is that I think we need to play out these scenarios maybe during the product strategy chat as well, because I think this buyback is directly in relation to our strategy with Swapper. And so like what the pros and cons, like the benefits are with this. And I think like, so 50K in one day with a buy order is about 10% the price will go up, right? So it's going to eat away at the amount even that we would assume later on for like a full million. And I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen in 6 months even, Sorry, I didn't mean a million. I meant 500,000 or 250,000. So I think we need to kind of like think about how this plays into like our overall strategy with Swapper, and like what best works for Swapper if that's the main goal, as well as of course rewarding DXD holders because we believe the price is too low. And how do people feel about that? Like, like us talking about it now is good, but maybe we need more of a thorough strategy analysis in regards to how this benefits Swapper.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Swapper is the one thing we kind of know that we want. I think Sky's completely right that it's hard to project future behavior because it will be our future behavior will affect the future environment, right? And so I think it's going to be hard to come up with like that. This is the plan we're executing without knowing what that future environment is. And so I think we need to just figure out exactly what we're signaling and indicating. Yeah.
If you outline the parameters, so I picture that this proposal would say something like DXDAO can buy back up to $1 million in DXD over the next year, and it will never be done in more than $25,000 worth or $50,000 worth in one day, right? And it won't happen in multiple days in a row.
Yeah.
And if you outline those parameters, then we can dynamically make decisions within those parameters, and that has been fully communicated to the public. And so then, as long as you're in those parameters, like the Treasury authorization proposal, it's that protects like your liability, and it shows you have this program that's fair and transparent. But you can still, and all of these individual dynamic decisions will still be public on-chain actions that people can follow along and see, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I just want to make sure that so to me, $1 million based on our Treasury worst case scenario, it wouldn't be, we could make that the overall amount, potential overall amount, subject to change, of course. And then, like you said, Sky, kind of like the specific dynamics of that, we can allocate as needed. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Let's so Paul, we'll work on that, and then like hopefully next Wednesday we have a draft with some of these parameters, and then that will be what we hopefully push to DAO Talk.
Sounds good.
Two comments, if I could just add. One is, I think the goal for Swapper should be to become the #1 place to buy DXD. So I think if you look at like the biggest pool, which is the Balancer 50/50, it's got $400,000 worth of DXD at the moment, or 1,650 DXD. They have a higher fee, so you could actually compete with it with less liquidity and a lower fee. And then the second thought is that if there's like a parameter for the buyback to be operational, it could be, and I think, Pope, you had mentioned something like this in your write-up or in previous conversations, but there being a threshold that the buyback is active if circulating market cap is below a certain percentage of the Treasury. I think that could be an interesting approach too, with some upper cap on how much actually could be spent, but yeah, those are just my two.
Exactly. Like we can have both as factors. Like obviously if the price of DXD moves significantly up, then the buyback, the need for the buyback is less likely to be the case. And also the trading volume is going to go way up, independent of anything we're doing if it's going up that high.
Well, because the other interesting thing is if the DXD price goes up, DXDAO can still use the DXD that it already has in swapper pools. And we have a lot of DXD. But
I mean, you could see that where like the price moves a little bit and like things are, and there's like then the DXD in the Treasury becomes, I mean, it's just tough to game everything out. We'll have to like stay nimble and respond to these things, but it's good to try to project things out and then just be able to.
That's why I think like a threshold rule is maybe a good way, because you could commit to that and it would kind of determine whether the buyback is active. And if the price goes up, then buyback turns off. If the price relative to the Treasury goes down, it comes back on.
Yeah, and it's like algorithmic, right? And so thinking about that, should we actually just like push that even into an on-chain mechanism at some point, or it's just like a social consensus that DXDAO will move when it's like these conditions are met. But
that's an interesting preference. I mean, we could even, if possible, for a certain, we can at least set the amount, and then if there is some way to do with on chain regarding the limits of the price, that would be good.
Cool. All right. Just want to move along. I wanted to just touch on Treasury stuff. Sky, I think you had a really great sheet. Can I? I'm thinking I would maybe share it if that's.
Yeah, that's public. It's just a summary of all of the proposals, basically, but in a organized manner.
So do you want to maybe just walk us through this? Because I thought this was really great, right? So this is the Treasury authorization proposal. It was like about a month ago, and we've been executing this in a variety of different ways. Really, the dev multi-sig and then the member balancer program. So you can see here, it says the exchange, the actual transaction, and then like the proposal that had it. And I think the total number that we've done is, or in the process of doing, is 1.8 million. Is that?
Yeah, just scroll up. Because there's a few. There's four. There's the XDAI and then the 3 USDC ones, which are not executed yet. So it depends on the market price, obviously. But like assuming it's around that price, if you assume that those are done, then so then go down again, and you have the average rate. Like it shows that we've averaged in. We started at when we were around 1,200, and now we're at we went up to 1,900, and now we're at 1,600. And so then we had allowances. We went a tiny bit over with DAI because a lot of the member balancers were actually in DAI. So like that's the one thing, is member balancer is a thing that's kind of on a member, right? And the DAO has less control of that. It could disapprove a proposal, and it could send back the ETH to the person, right? Theoretically, but we're basically on track for the targets that we were aiming for. The XDAI one, which is an additional 160 or 100 ETH, so 160 XDAI, that was kind of outside of, so that's like in addition to, so it went over a little bit extra there, but that's more for like payroll. So that I guess we could include that in DAI, but that's being used for payroll on XDAI. So really we need more SUSD and then USDT to get to the target amounts down below for the total of $3 million worth. That's what we had approved in the, as long as, I mean, unless someone has an issue with SUSD and USDT, that's what we had approved. That's what we're still going to do. I think the liquidity on all those pools on 1 inch is the same. So there's not like more slippage on any of those tokens. So I guess it's good to have all 4 of those plus XDAI across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I think the preference in general would be for more decentralization, and I think that's why DAI is attractive. I think that's also one of the reasons SUSD is potentially more attractive, although I don't know how decentralized their governance really is at this point. But I mean, I think at least it's an on-chain synthetic asset. I think the other potential reason is to do this, to provide this liquidity on Swapper, and also kind of help build connections with synthetics.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say, and I think SUSD actually has probably some of the juicier yields, but that's a maybe secondary consideration.
DAI is like 5 times better than SUSD. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, like I just think collateral protected stablecoins are like way more secure for the stablecoin holders. Like SUSD is basically senior share. It's just backed by SNX, and if SNX is like going to south, the whole system could break.
If SNX tanks, you're saying?
Yeah, like, and then people start disbelieving SUSDs going back to $1, and then it's like a death spiral. Like, it's unproven, but I just think having, like, again, collateral-based stablecoin it's a personal thing, but I expect we will see some senior share. Like there have been stable coins which are backed by like some token which went like south and they never recovered back.
When you say collateral-based stable coins, what do you mean by
that? By some by ETH or basically Maker.
Yeah, I guess you could argue that Synthetics is collateralized, but it's collateralized by the native token, right? So there's no external collateral.
Right. It's basically if Maker would include MKR as like the main collateral, it would be Synthetics. But there's a reason why they don't want to do that.
And then on Tether, I think that one of the reasons that Tether is lower here is people have concerns about the solvency behind Tether. So there was some, I'd say, fairly positive news for Tether this week because they settled with the New York Attorney General on the case against that. So I guess there's not any potential legal threats against them right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we also hope to have a USDT DXD pool, right? Like if we can own the USD, Asia and a lot of the world loves USDT, it would be awesome to have a DXD USDT pool, like a really big one, right? That's part of the reason we have USDT, right?
Like a more I expected that we have stablecoin pools, and then it will allow people to use any stablecoin to buy DXD. If we have USDT, USDC, then people could still route through that pool. And it would way less risky for the DXDAO to provide liquidity.
Than DXD versus them?
Yeah. So if we have stablecoin pools, bigger stablecoin pools, it will allow people to buy into other assets. At some point, one stablecoin needs to be connected to DXD to get into DXD.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't thinking USDT, USDC pool is a great pool for Swapper, but it could be. It would be awesome if DXD was the connector of the different tokens, right? That's what 1inch is doing with 1inch token.
Yeah, I think that USDC and USDT and really DAI are all you have to have them to play because people are going to come with those tokens to the exchange, right? To Swapper, even if it's an aggregate. So you have to have a route for those. Just for some numbers here, SUSD is $250 million in circulation. DAI is 2.26 billion. USDC is 8.2 billion, and USDT is 20 billion. So the SUSD, I mean, 250 million is pretty significant.
Not compared to 20 billion.
Well, yeah, but I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be lower. I think it's important that. I think stable coins are probably going to be maybe it's a winner take all, but it's probably a dime a dozen, right? And I think that there are centralization concerns here, and so the question is how to minimize those. Do you minimize them just by having the most decentralized stablecoin, or do you minimize them by having multiple stable coins? There's more than that. I mean, it's all about how you define these things. What is circulation? Banks create money, right? Every time they lend something, they're creating money. So I guess there's questions on specifically what we're doing with this, the one question is like, I mean, SUSD, if we want to, if there's any, want to change course on that. And then secondly, like, I think we're getting to the conversation and we start like the next Treasury authorization proposal, because just off of like the same timeline, you know, we're probably going to hit that 3 million number in two or 3 weeks, maybe. So yeah, how are people thinking about how we move forward after that?
Once we have 3 million, that was our initial goal. Like, we want to continue it probably, but maybe at a slower pace, like to average in at a slower pace, or do we want to? It depends if we can put the stuff to use in Swapper immediately, and then we want to have more of a payroll.
Yeah, and I feel like what we're doing, actually, the XI thing is actually a little nice now, because we're kind of like, you know, we're converting some to stable coins, but like basically all the ones for payroll are going to be through XDAI, right? And so like we'll know there, and then we need to figure out and start putting the stable coins on mainnet to work in Swapper. So I guess like for the next steps, the question is like, are all the stable coins that we have in the mainnet treasury, are those all going into Swapper, right? Or how much of those are going into Swapper? Because the XI will handle worker proposals and funds in there. And then like, should we be putting stable coins in non-DXDAO products, you know, thinking of getting some yield? Are we looking to do that now, or do we want to get things into Swapper first and then try to increase the number of stable coins more, diversify further out of ETH? Yeah, I guess the Swapper, getting things into Swapper is probably the most important now.
Yeah, maybe we're not ready for like a full known authorization proposal. Like maybe continue some layering, some averaging in, but we want to like have a bunch of awesome Swapper pools and see what is used and needed for that, and then we'll know how to make the plan going forward. So we want to like maybe continue, so like not like another full authorization, but like a continuation of in some manner, and then once we start putting it to use in Swapper and maybe some in Omen, more in Omen, then we'll know like, and we'll see where ETH price is or whatever, and then we can make a more of a harder proposal.
Yeah, and one of the I think agree with that, and this kind of the buyback is somewhat related to this too.
Yeah.
But I do think for Swapper, I think we should also be thinking about Swapper on XDAI, and maybe putting some funds into there. And I don't know, we probably would need to do another proposal to get funds over, to have enough to put into Swapper and also have enough to do payroll and worker payments from there.
Yeah, and if we were talking about like 5 million of value, like into like XDAI Swapper, to like beat HoneySwap, what tokens are those? And that will take a while. Yeah, I mean, well, we could do it faster, but how much is an unanswered question.
Yeah, and I think we should start. You know, we notice this whenever we're doing anything. Like, there's all the process of doing things. We learn things, and so it's like we should start thinking about additional liquidity into XDAI Swapper. Maybe eventually it could go up to what you're talking about, Sky. But we should start flirting with that idea and thinking about how it would play out.
So does that mean like we should turn on a faucet to like move like we're gonna have the first proposal to move into XDAI, but you basically start by moving across the bridge, and that's XDAI. So we could do that like every 2 days to get like $1 million onto XDAI to start, and then once you have $1 million on XDAI, you can put some into Swapper, right? So, but we need to get more money onto XDAI, right?
Yeah, and then maybe I can do, you know, after this authorization proposal passes, we can just do another one after that. I guess it will complicate things a little bit because X dies, presumably that's the exposure to die. But yeah, I just think we just need to keep rolling these through.
You don't have to be exposed to die. We could do wrapped ETH.
Right.
Yeah, so we can use the Omni bridge.
Yeah, I mean, and if we want to do that, I mean, we could even do we don't have to wait for the first proposal to pass. We could initiate another proposal.
Right. Yeah, the ETH would be interesting actually, because that's what we would want. Yeah, maybe we just skip die.
Also, I think we will provide DXD liquidity on Swapper as soon as possible, right? Like, I don't think we need to do the buyback before we provide liquidity, right? Is that actually like the first action we're gonna do on Swapper mainnet?
I mean, for providing DXD, we can add the DXD from our treasury, but there's already we want, right? Because of all the discussions we had.
Yeah, the discussion. I think we had the discussions where bonding curve was open. Like, if we close it, there's no issue. Like,
I think
we
there's
would
an
still
issue.
do the buyback. It's just what?
So this is the thing. So if we do the buyback, we actually bought it for the market price, and we can add that amount of what we buy to as liquidity. But if we add the liquidity and then buy back, I don't think that will end up well. Also, I would say from price perspective.
But
you don't want that.
Didn't we say that it would be cool to put the liquidity into Swapper and then do the buyback on Swapper?
Which liquidity? Are we talking about DXD?
DXD, yeah. DXD.
Where is DXD coming from?
The Treasury.
Yeah. So this is this is the whole discussion. Why are we doing the buyback?
Yeah, I mean, if we provide liquidity from the treasury now, it's below the bonding price. So it's like we're selling more DXD.
But because we're also doing the buyback, and then the buyback will happen on Swapper. We just had some DXD holders on a call last week or the week before that said that is a smart idea to do, or is it Mad Max to do the buyback on Swapper?
My feeling is, and that's like a small subset of the overall public opinion probably, but I have the feeling that DXD holders really want to see fucking liquidity on Swapper. Like, they don't. I think they all want to see DXDAO generating revenue, and we are losing out of revenue by not using Swapper.
Why don't we do a farming campaign for DXD instead of depositing it from the treasury?
Yeah, that would be much more wiser, right? So people that want to actually exit DXD, their token, they can do that. Also, people they want to hold long term and want to see the price going up, will be happy. But if we put our own liquidity, which stabilizes the price at the lower, and
we're not sure that that's true, though. We always say
it is true.
We're not sure that's true.
Wait, it is true. The more liquidity we add, the harder it will be for the price to go up, right?
Nah. I heard
easier for people
from teams who based on experience, the more liquidity you add, it's actually way better in terms of price appreciation, because it will allow whales to buy in
easier. Yeah.
So
now, no one can actually.
I don't know that much, but we have Zet and saying one thing and Drama saying the complete opposite. And
I think we're saying the same thing. But so we need to expect whales to buy for that to happen, right? So maybe obviously if we build something up, do events, do announce our product lineup, do partnerships, stuff like that that actually drives these whales to buy. Yeah, then I agree. Let's do it. But if we just like just add liquidity and like I would
Yeah,
say
I think everybody's right here, right? Like, I mean, Zet's right that if we put in more liquidity, there's literally more DXD that has to be bought for the price to go up. It's going to be harder for the price to go up. But I think the point is correct that, like, some people are actually deterred from buying because there just simply isn't enough liquidity, and they're not going to move the price 50% of their buy. And Pulp raised their hand.
Yeah, when we talk about a farming campaign, the question is also how far away are we from launching the swapper token itself? Because that would also be, we have way more flexibility with a swapper token than with a DXD token when it comes to liquidity mining.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, not only that, like another intermediate question is like, when are we actually ready with the farming feature, right? That I think it's still like a few weeks away, which means like those weeks away, we're losing out. The longer there's no liquidity on Swapper, the more we lose out.
So
yeah, I agree.
I agree, except for like I think it's important that Swapper is like a great product, and we will own the DXD like ETH pool. We own the DXD pool whenever we can. But like I don't actually think we're like missing out on like an insane amount of revenue, right? Like I mean, there's $100,000 traded on DXD in a day, so like just the fees on that are like not going to be super high that we're getting. So it seems to me it's like part of the puzzle of like making Swapper a really great thing, but it's like, is it like the first step? Because like, what does it get us in the short term? Like to me, this is like a multi-step process, and like it's probably, I guess I see buyback first in a lot.
Well, I think we should plan something that goes in parallel with the buyback.
Does anyone know any other token, 1inch or any token that's ever tried to make their pool smaller and not bigger? Does anyone have any example of that? Because that's better to have a smaller pool for their token.
Do you think you can compare what we are doing to 1inch? Like, did 1inch raise their money through 1inch token?
Any token, name any token.
You can't really compare. Like,
MKR did this for 2 years. You couldn't get any liquidity for Maker for 2 years. They only had it on chain and through Oasis, and like, I don't know if it like how much it worked, but they definitely did it.
They sold one MKR for 3 or 4 ETH. Like at some point, it was so illiquid, they made shit tons of money.
Right.
So,
like one point is, if we do a snapshot vote and DXD voters say yes, put fucking liquidity on Swapper,
and we do it.
All right, that's easy.
I mean, yeah,
let's do it.
I want to do it. Like, I'm not arguing, like from the perspective of DXDAO, it's better. But from the perspective of investors holding DXD and I would say, like, if we had a plan where we release like multiple announcements and drive hype, drive new investors, and yeah, that would make sense to put liquidity from our side. But if we just gonna do like internal stuff where we just update, put liquidity, and then like weeks later do something else and something like, I think if we do that, we need to do it as an event, right? We need to do like 3 or 4 more stuff after that, right? Just add announcements on that. They don't need to be directly connected, but just
which we're planning anyways, right? Like we have, and we need to coordinate. This is a topic for the product strategy call this Friday, right? Like how we're coordinating the slew of things that are upcoming. I would just say, I think we should do something to boost DXD liquidity in parallel with the buyback. We don't need to wait 3 months to do this. Like I think it doesn't have to be today, but I think we should be moving forward to have liquidity alongside the V1 launch, Mesa launch. It's like open to all that stuff, you know.
So if we do a farming initiative program where we reward people putting up a DXD and we get a lot of DXD from the community, would that be enough?
Yeah, we just need to win the pool, or like we just need to make that pool the deepest pool, and probably deeper than anything like that exists right now.
So that's an I would say that's an option we should 100% explore, right?
And
we do the
those
buyback.
rewards could be offset by the buyback, right? Like as long as like
Yeah.
the net DXD in circulation is going down.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also, like another. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Wait.
Like, I think we should sell DMM as soon as possible. Like, why not get rid of it? Because
Who knows,
I think we
who
already
knows what's going on there? Yeah,
we're gonna get money for the DMG we have, dude. Don't worry about it. Like it's not worth. That's like last of our concerns. Is what the DM like.
We can buy DXD with it. Like I'm skeptical that we will get anything out of it. I don't think the DXD should lose out of it. Like out of. I expect it will go to zero.
It's not going to go to zero. They're going to give everyone DMG money. They're going to give DMG holders money. They're going to give away all their money to the DMG holders.
Well, like I'm just looking on CoinGecko. Let's see.
How much money do they have? Do we know?
Millions of dollars.
Yeah, how much?
Millions of dollars.
Guys, I think this is a moot.
You think they're liquidating, Sky, right?
What's that?
You think they're liquidating? You think they're giving all the money back to the token holders?
Yeah, they said they are.
Yeah, right. So they're
in the value of the fundraise, which now they have like 4x what they raised, right? So they'll give that back the Ethereum amount in USD.
I think it might be a moot point anyways, because the DMG liquidity on Uniswap is under 100K.
Yeah, we can't sell.
It's like 30. I don't think we even can, unless somebody wants to open up an FTX account. So we dump it on behalf of DXgov.
Yeah, I don't know if yeah.
I mean, it depends on the price. If we put a limit order in, which is attractive, people from the pool will sell into the order.
I mean, who cares?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that. I don't know if it's worth the. I mean, it's at 320,000 now. Like the total value of it. It's just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could put the limit orders on chain, and people would arbit from whatever the centralized exchanges are. But you're looking at like what, like 150, 200K probably at best.
I would say we wait.
And if we hold it, maybe we get back.
Yeah, and it's just a guessing game at this point.
I would wait. Like if yeah, like the effort it will take us to do this versus waiting. And
we got way more fun and important things to focus on than worry about DMG token.
Yeah, definitely fun, more fun. Okay, so it sounds like we can continue some of this conversation on the Friday product strategy call, because it really is on like how we're implementing swapper liquidity. We didn't. I mean, I think that even the multi-chain part of this is even more is relevant too there, because yeah, if we're going to launch something on XDAI, we want to have having DXD part of that. I think could be very important too. And then, yeah, we'll kind of wait to push forward with another Treasury authorization proposal until we've got more insight into what we need from swapper liquidity needs. Cool. The only other thing we didn't really get to was Dxd Guild and what that kind of looks like. I don't really have any big thoughts on that, but Augusto's been working on that. I think has gone through the audit, and so how we kind of roll DXD holders into the current rep governance is something we need to think about as a design. Yeah, and so don't have to have answers now, but something to keep thinking about. Cool. Anything else? Reflections on things earlier? Any comments or things to think of?
I think that wraps it up.
Cool. All right. Thanks for joining.
Bye bye, guys.
All right, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.